from the beginning? All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, team. My name is Claudia. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Tim Arnold accepted our invitation to the show. Tim, welcome to the show, man.
Lovely to meet you, Claudio.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's go back to the beginning. Your life, were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you perhaps began taking piano lesson or guitar lesson, or feel free to elaborate on that.
Right in at the start. Yeah. I was born into a theatre family, really. And quite a strange family, because my grandfather was part of a kind of what you call posh family,
Yeah.
Sort of influential society family, but he ran away from home and went to Soho, I think in the 1930s, and became a bohemian. And he was pushed out of that family in a way because he married, he fell in love and married my grandmother, who was a diminutive lady. She was what we call a midget, so less than 4 feet high, which tiny lady. And who was she was an entertainer. She worked in the circus when she was a child, and so that sort of divided that family in a way. And of course they had a child, my mother, who also became a dancer and a singer. And by the time, and she was gay as well. She is gay, and so by the time I was born, we didn't have any connection to the high society Arnold family anymore. I say high society, good people, but we had no connection with them at all. And so I grew up surrounded by actors and dancers and musicians, and very little money, but a lot of life and a lot of color and wonder. Difficult growing up in that situation. I think my mother really struggled as a single mother, but she had some success as an artist. So I learned that being an artist was acceptable. Like many of the artists I know in the United Kingdom have a completely different story, where being an artist was not looked on as acceptable and was a strange career choice. For me, that was the normal career choice.
Good for you, yeah. Because eventually, right, like you like music, and then in a family, your parents perhaps will tell you, hey, forget about music, you're not going to make any money, go to the university, like they call it in the UK, the uni. Forget about music, go the safe path and do music on the side, right?
Complete opposite. Yeah. My mother was always, the greatest gift I had from her as a child was being left alone to imagine and create with art and poetry, and then eventually with songwriting. She left me alone, and she never talked about going to university. I did not go to university. I accepted to art school, but I didn't go.
I
had a band. So
that's right. I mean, you have a band. Sometimes somebody told me, another musician told me that this a long time ago, that if you want to be a musician, you cannot have a plan B. Either so, because if you have a plan B, it will be easy to give up, not making any money, my band is not going anywhere, we're not getting a record deal. But if you have only a plan A, right, and that's it, you make it happen somehow, somewhere in the world.
I think it's part of the, there's a kind of romantic picture of an artist that we all know it's a romantic picture. And there is some romance in it. There's also some unpleasant parts of it. Being poor is not fun, you know, and and being surrounded sometimes by people who tell you you should have a plan B
Yeah.
was hard growing up. But the romance in it is that you do sacrifice. I think I sacrificed having comfort. You know, I don't own a house still. You know, I call myself fairly bohemian, and at my age, I've never owned property. I've never had children. I've never, you know, had security and things like that. But I love my life, and I don't think that's an easy thing for many people to say. So I'm very lucky
Yeah.
that to have ended up doing and keep doing what I love doing, and meeting new people like you now.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Thank you. On the other hand, right, there is a society, you go, I don't know, your country, people that go to London Business School, London School of Economics, go for Cambridge and all the school, and they make a lot of money and very unhappy. You know, they drink a lot, they do a lot of stupid stuff, and at the end of the day, you know, yeah, you make a lot of money, a lot more than you have in the bank, but they cheat on the wife and this and that, you know, and they're unhappy. And what's, you know, so it's good to make money and have a good living and be happy about it. You know, go to bed
Yeah,
every
I
night.
mean,
Say, man, I did
I
the best I
focus a
could, and
little
yeah,
bit. I focus a little bit more on trying
yeah,
to make money now than I have done before, because I'm getting older, and I think I want to make sure that I become older and I'm comfortable. But
that's right.
still,
Yeah,
I think when you're driven by creating, and you can't switch it off, then
that's
you
right. Yeah,
have to surrender to that sometimes. And sometimes, you know, over the years, it upsets family, it upsets a girlfriend or partner, it upsets friends, but I don't regret it. And
of course. You know,
I'm in the best place I've been in now. And
yeah, that's your life. So why
yeah,
should tell you how to live it, right?
yeah, I'm really happy about all of that. It's a difficult journey, but
Yeah,
I'm glad I've made it. Yeah.
that's good. Good for you. Were you in any band when you were like in high school, 15, 16, 17-year old, or
Yeah.
more than many, maybe?
Yeah. I never thought I would be in a band, because I started making music 11, 12 years old, that was instrumental, very much inspired by Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. I've talked about this a lot. I mean, that was how I learnt multi-tracking and recording instruments on my own when I was 12, because I saw that he'd done it, and I thought, well, that's possible. And I lived alone. I lived in Spain with my mum, and I didn't really have many connections, or certainly not musicians. So that I thought I would be like that, solo all the time. But
Yeah.
when I moved back to England, I started in this school where it's not a boarding school, but I was staying with a family who lived near the school. And I didn't have any friends or anything. I didn't really know anybody. I see my brother maybe once or twice a week. He's much older than me, and was living his own life. But I was very much on my own. And then I met a man, a young, well, boy. We were both 14, in the classroom, and started talking about music. And he, his name was Jack Reynolds, and he helped me really begin to explore the idea of sharing music with other people. And he's the first musician that I played with, and we put a band together when we were 15 or 16. And within 3 or 4 years, we ended up signing a record deal with Sony, and that was my first band. Joe Castor, it was called. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing, man.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I mean, looking back on it, it was a kind of dream come true. I was planning to make albums. I didn't know I'd do it with what was my best friend at the time at school. I think that's the dream for a lot of youngsters, that to be with their closest friends in that period as a teenager, and then start getting paid to go on the road and be with each other and enjoy those adventures while making music. I mean, it's just yeah, really very grateful to have had that.
So when was your mom back in Spain at the time?
Yes,
So
yeah,
when
my
you
mum.
were before computer, before email, you were sending letter or calling her on the phone, and she couldn't believe it, right? I mean, I
We
imagine that she was very proud of you, right?
Yeah, she was proud and also quite shocked
Yeah,
because as a child I was so introverted and quiet and hiding behind my glasses, and I didn't really socialize with people my own age or anything like that. So she came to one of my first shows in London when I was 16 or 17 at a
wow.
place called the Mean Fiddler, and she was so proud, and but also surprised. She just thought, my God, I went to school with very short hair and glasses and did all my homework, and within 18 months my hair was like Hendrix and just in music shops all the time and playing guitar, and she didn't see that coming. She thought I was going to be like a writer, which I am, but the performing side of what I do didn't really come into being until I was 17,
Yeah.
18.
But in a way, right, from a sort of psychological point of view, you are introverted with the glasses, your hair, and then you became like somebody else, if you will, like on a stage, if you will. How you manage for being a quiet, introverted kid to open up, explore yourself, describing all your life in lyrics and so on and so forth, like me talking to people all over the world. I'm a very introvert as well. How you manage that side, right? Because it's different, it's very different to be at home writing song for yourself, writing
Yeah,
diary, than performing in front of a crowd of folks, right? That pay
yeah.
money to see you, right?
I think that it's the complicated part of being a performer or entertainer that's not an actor, because good actors, they know the difference between who they are and the role that they play.
Yeah,
For me, I think it's the same for a lot of other people in rock and roll. I didn't distinguish the parts, so I think it caused me a lot of difficulties in being a kind of confident and like a leader and a front man, which really I wasn't mature enough to really be. But I was playing that part, and of course, the record company and the management and the rest of the band wanted and needed me to play that part. I don't think it was in that way as a person. It was not very healthy for me. But we made great music, and I performed and created to a level that people still love and enjoy from that album, and they
yeah,
remember. So the work I did was good for others. The work I did on myself was not so good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's part of open up about yourself and open up to
Yeah,
the
it's
world.
very young as well
Yeah,
to
it's a journey that
science.
we all go through, right? So
Yeah, 19, I think, is quite young. When
yeah,
you're someone that hasn't been uh, entertaining and performing, but I was never the
yeah,
popular person at school. People
yeah,
didn't notice me. I was quiet. So that was, I think I put on a shell that was very hard, and I'm not a very hard person. So it caused a lot of complications. But yeah, part of the journey.
yeah. Looking back, now you have released over 25 albums. It was it was easy or perhaps difficult for you to have that success early in life, because that when you get a record deal when you're 16 or 17, you're performing, you haven't matured enough as a human being, so it creates another level of pressure from you, for your partner, as well from the record label. Hey, we want more here. We want the album that was here. Now we want to move it, the second album here. You go from small venues to coffee shop to 500 people venues and 1,000 or whatever, and it's create a lot of pressure for a kid who is 18 years old, right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think in the 1990s, it felt very tangible. If you were good, I did think I was good at what I did.
Yeah.
I believed in my work and the songs and the music and my band when I started enough to expect some success at that stage. But I also have a feeling that all of us we're kind of governed by energy, you know, the energy that's coming out of us as human beings, and the energy that we're surrounded by, I think, has a lot to do with the steps that we take in our lives. And the energy in me had not resolved a lot of difficulties in my childhood. The energy around me was, you know, Soho, central London, and that's a very kind of it's hard, it's tough, you know, it's warm and loving in some ways, but it's very hard and tough. And I was not prepared really. And to be frank, I think if Jocasta, my band, had continued and carried on making records, I'm not sure how I might have survived. I think it might have been a bit of a difficult path for me, you know, with alcohol and drugs that played a huge part later, not during the band so much, but afterwards, an addiction. I mean, I'm kind of grateful that I went through addiction now, because if I'd have carried on with that band, I think I may not be here, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah,
it was a good thing that, you know, you kind of took care of your life and
I mean,
stopped all
it
the
takes a
stuff.
long time to see that. I didn't
Oh,
feel like
absolutely, absolutely,
10
absolutely.
years ago I didn't really see that, but I see that now. Yeah.
Well,
But
I'm happy that you're alive, and I'm happy that you
me too.
overcame all your, you know, external pressure and circumstances in life.
Yeah.
When I was preparing a question for this interview and I listened to your music, I came across a quote from Iggy Pop. I think he did an interview with NME magazine that he was, quote unquote, he's saying Tim's music reminded him of David Bowie. Man, that's a big deal for somebody. Mention David Bowie and coming from Iggy Pop, which is, you know, that's a big, big, big deal, man. So what do you think about that, man?
Well, I think the same thing about it now than as I did when I heard him say that.
Yeah.
And there were two things. One of them was just really, really grateful that somebody like him would think that and say it in publicly. But the other thing was kind of pressure as well.
That's
Because,
right.
you know, it's okay when a journalist says something about you
Yeah.
that's complimentary.
Yeah.
But when somebody who's actually you know, worked with Bowie and is their friend, it's
Yeah.
a real endorsement. And so yeah, I was really amazed by it. And also, although my path in music has been very DIY, you know, no record labels or managers or publishers or nothing like that, I've done everything myself. I have met a lot of successful, famous and you know, notable figures and work with some of them along the way, which is amazing. As I get older, I look at it and think, how the hell did that happen? And it's only happened because of the work I've done. And what I know what it's like to be very successful and very famous, because I've met people, not because I've always been very underground, really. But for Iggy Pop or someone to actually just say that, they're making a choice to be supportive. you know.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
They
Yeah,
know they're going to get quoted. They know so that it's going to be heard by other people if they say it in a interview situation. So I think he's a really, really kind individual, and
yeah,
yeah, it's really grateful for that.
yeah. He's, of course, David Bowie is one of my heroes, and I unfortunately I never saw him playing live, and he didn't come to United States that much. Although where I live, I see a lot of concerts. I told you before, I see close to 60 shows a year here, between 60 and 80, because I live in the border with three states, with Maryland and Virginia, and I'm in the middle with
Right.
Washington. So every band comes this way, and I mean
Yeah.
literally every band comes this way. So I'm able to see a concert, and my wife say that I have expensive taste because I spend a lot of money in music and seeing great band. But that's my life. That's what I like, and that's what just to do. For some of us who don't know who Lindsay Kemp is, and feel free to elaborate and describe a little bit for people who are listening to this, maybe who he was and so forth. So,
oh gosh, well, Lindsay Kemp is or was a dancer and a mime artist and a movement artist as well, a kind of theatrical master of staging and color and vision. He created paintings with his body and other people's bodies, like a director on a film tells a story with cutting shots with actors in it. And I think Lindsay Kemp really created a painting, a moving painting on stage, in a way that not all theatre does. Some does. And certainly changed the landscape of the 1970s in terms of expression with the body, real human connection between the body and the emotions. And of course, he'd been working through the 60s with his own dance troupe, and then met David Bowie in the late 60s. And Bowie really approached Lindsay as a kind of mentor. And when Bowie wasn't quite sure which direction he wanted to go in, and music or theatre and mime and dance. And cut a long story short, I mean, Lindsay directed the Ziggy Stardust show. He was behind all the staging in 72 and 73. So those amazing shows that Bowie put on of Ziggy Stardust, completely influenced and styled by Lindsay, and a lot more of Bowie's career, I think, and he said it himself later on, owes a huge debt to Lindsay Kemp. Lindsay imported fashion and theatre from Japan. Those ideas and kabuki theatre, ideas that came out of Italian theatre, commedia dell'arte, and brought them into pop culture. So when we see the new romantic phase of the 80s in the United Kingdom, so many of those artists really looked at Lindsay Kemp like a hero, some more than Bowie in a way. I think Lindsay is one of those artists that our pop and rock culture would not have been the same without his influence. Really incredible.
Yeah, I read somewhere that I think Kate Bush say something similar about Kinsey. I mean, he was definitely a very influential person. A lot of artists back in the 70s and so on, right? So,
and then he did a show in the early 70s called Flowers. And Kate Bush saw that, and that's when Kate Bush approached Lindsay for dance classes. And I still meet people to this day who went to to see Flowers in the 70s, It sounds like one of the most incredible pieces of theatre that we've ever known. I mean, I wish I wasn't alive, but I would have loved to have seen that. Yeah.
Gotcha. On May 5th, 2023, well, a couple of weeks, well, 3 weeks ago, you end up releasing the album called Super Connected. Like in a way, lift a magnifying glass between technology and human and devices and connectivity. And I'm a computer scientist, my day job, so it's I know how it's
That's
like.
interesting. I should mention first as well, though, that just talking about Lindsay as an artist, I should mention that as a person, because I worked with him.
Yeah.
He's also, and Kate Bush probably would have said this as well too, quite a magical person.
Really?
Like,
what do you mean by magical?
You know, when you're with somebody and everything around you changes.
I got it. Yeah.
I don't even mean on stage, because that's what Lindsay and we did. Well, we worked together on some of my songs. I directed him in a video for one of my songs, Change, but then we did a performance of one of my songs where he interpreted the song in dance. And whether we were on stage or having a coffee, you know, or just sitting in a restaurant or whatever, everything else kind of shimmered and there was a magic in the air when he was speaking, when he would move, when he would arrive, when he would leave. And I'm not the only person that says it. And I really believe that was because he really, what we talked about earlier about being an artist, is that he surrendered every single part of his being to the art that he made, and it turned him into something other than human, I think.
Wow.
Really magical. I have to say it because working with him is genius, and he taught me so many things in the short time I worked with him. But Lindsay Kemp, I think, was actually from another world.
Wow. Yeah. Some people have like an aura about themselves, and again, I don't know how to describe it, but they attract a lot of people. They bring a lot of energy into a meeting, to a crowd, and it's undeniable, right? If you see it once with Tim Arnold, right, or with your girlfriend, it's two events, but you see it all over again, many times with different people in different circumstances. Maybe a coffee, maybe a theater, maybe a concert. It's not an accident, right? So there's something about the guy or him or her or whatever that it brings a lot of energy from outer space, whatever, into
and sometimes I think,
so.
you say out of space, and I think that about Lindsay because I think he's from another planet. But actually, maybe it's just they're more human.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I've been very lucky collaborating with phenomenal artists over the years, but he was the most magical. And if you haven't seen the video it's called What Love Would Want.
One of the questions I saw it. The video. I saw it.
See that, and that was his last dance that he did. He was 80 when we did that, and he passed away 2 months after that dance.
My God, man. Well, I'm glad that you were able to capture that with him,
and that it was, that was my dream, was to have a 6-camera film shoot, which I directed of the dance and me performing the song and the choir, and I didn't know that would be his final dance. So that was magical as well. I
got it. Before we go to the album, feel free to elaborate on you're scoring the music for Iggy's film Blood Orange and the theme song Money Kills Love, right? Which in many ways, money kills a lot of things, not just, some people get very famous early in life or have a lot of money, they're very successful, they do a lot of stuff, stupid stuff, and the simple stuff goes away. And It's
Yes.
so easy to get in trouble and so forth. And the drugs, like you say, the drugs and the fame and, you know, the drinking or cheating on your partner. It's so easy to do because we are human beings. We are tempted to do stuff, right? You know,
Mm.
it's so feel free to elaborate on that on the film that you scored for Blood
On
Orange.
Money Kills Love.
Yeah, yeah.
On Money Kills Love. Yeah. It's funny. I write songs sometimes, or they write themselves through me.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
But then other songs I write because somebody has given me an idea and I have to elaborate on it and turn it into a song. And with Money Kills Love, originally it was the character that Iggy played in the film was about a man at the end of his life, and kind of reevaluating his past and his values, I suppose, and so that was the message that I was told by the director of the film and the writer of the film, Toby Tobias, who's also my brother, and he just said that, you know, this is like a man's last words imagined to his son or something as he's leaving behind. And so that's the chorus, you know, money kills love, boy. And it, at the time, I didn't have a personal connection to that. But when I finished writing it, I thought, oh gosh, I think I was in my 30s. I can't remember, 38, 39. And I just think I think it's important not to demonize money, and in fact with anything, I don't think it's good to say something is one thing or the other, right? You know, everything is complex. Money is complex, and money is an energy as well, and you can do good things with that energy. But it has its own energy, and I think in the context of Money Kills Love, it's not that money always kills love. I think it really does a lot. I think I think it was similar to the Hendrix quote about the power of money. I forgot what the quote is. It's the power of love that he wanted to exploit and amplify. Where it was the love of power that was the problem for everybody. And I think it's the same with money, isn't it? It's it can be a really amazing tool, but more often than not, the systems that we have in our society, and especially in a capitalist society, make it hard for money to be a good tool sometimes. So
no, I know exactly what you meant. What's your creative process? You are in watching television, going to a supermarket, driving, going to Subway, and then an idea comes to you, you write it down, or you wake up every morning, hey, I want to write the best song, the best love song ever, and you go to your guitar, and how ideas come to you?
All of that, no. You can't. Very good question. I mean, I don't drive, so I never driving. I don't try to write songs. I've never tried to write, so I'm constantly carrying things in my head, which is both musical and lyrical, and conceptual, and that's why I never toured any of my albums. You know, I've never toured. One reason I never had the funding to tour, it was expensive, you know. But also because whenever I was releasing an album, I was already halfway through writing and starting recording the next one, you know. And I now know this has got something to do with my kind of autism. And I think also important for anybody watching and listening to know autism is different for every autistic person. You know, it's not like one thing. But certainly with the work I've done with the doctors that diagnosed me, which only happened last year, I was only diagnosed last year. It's clear that I have a kind of motor that doesn't stop running. And my process is working backwards. I sort of work, you know, when I have a little idea, the first thing I see is the finished record and the last show and the audience and what they're feeling and what they thought. That's the first thing I see when I have a tiny idea, and then I fill in the steps to make that happen.
To
so
make that happen, yeah.
It's a bit, I have an idea and kind of immediately see an outcome of how the live performance or the band or the orchestra or the video or the film, what it all is. It all comes at once, to be honest. And the only thing that I've ever found difficult is I don't find it difficult. I find it difficult fitting in friendships, relationships, eating, drinking enough water, and all those things. But so the process, I think it probably looks a little bit like a mad person. Because I've always pretty much lived alone and only recently had more than one room. Until I was 40, I've lived in studio flats in Soho, and just one room, you know, and that was very chaotic. But when you were talking about where did the ideas come from, I'm constantly writing things down, which I think all songwriters do, and voice notes and reading. I mean, just reading a lot of books, but also history. I love history so much. I think I wanted to be a historian before I wanted to be a songwriter. So I love finding things in history that illuminate my mind or my spirit. And then I look at pop culture and go, oh, no one's written about that. So I will, because I like to write about something that I don't like competition, and the side of the music world that is a bit like football sometimes. I don't like that. I was never competitive. I just like to concentrate on something I'm doing, you know, and so the process is quite solitary, not lonely though, because music to me is, and the process of making music is like working with an amazing friend that I love, that loves me, you know.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I told you before we start recording that I'm in the spectrum as well. And for me, it had been, like I said before, a gift in many ways. I understood the problem, and I took a step to make it work for me, whatever that means for people listening to stuff. And because I was born that way, it was your label, you know, a weird kid or a weak kid that couldn't concentrate in school, a bad student. And, you know, 40 years ago, there wasn't diagnosed. It wasn't a book called the DSM, right, or the Manual of Diagnosis of Psychological Issues. And the best thing that happened to me, and I say all over, is because I was born that way. And I learned how to, it's a gift that it's $1 million gift, and I learned how to unravel that. And
I really relate to that, Claudio. I really relate to the I mean, did you know when you were a child? Were you diagnosed as a child?
No, because remember that I'm 60, right? So the diagnosis of, you know, HDSD, autism, which is a spectrum of, you know, many diagnoses at the same time, and Asperger, we're not put into writing, and we're not part of a book called the DSM, right? It's a book that all the psychologists and psychiatrists use with diagnosis, right? Number one, right? And number two, there were no medication. A lot of kids now, they take, you know, they appeal to concentrate in school because they're well, otherwise they cannot stand still and so forth. I never took any medication, but I saw myself in the mirror. I knew that was different. And then the other thing, like you say before, as I'm talking to you, I'm solving problem in my head. I'm always racing. And I, you know, I couldn't concentrate, so I wasn't I didn't have good grades, and I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do. And then eventually I turned my life around, and I became quote unquote successful in my life. And yeah,
So we have a similar background then.
that's right.
Because
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know. So I was, living most or half of my life as an autistic, undiagnosed.
undiagnosed. Yeah,
Looking back on it now, it's been amazing, but
mm.
also difficult as well, because I see everything's amplified, the good things and the bad things. The good things, I realize a lot of it is to do with my autism.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and so a lot of the bad things, it's great being diagnosed and understanding neurodivergence and what that means, because I feel like I'm a little bit more in control of the choices now. But I know what you mean about it being a gift. I think
yeah.
that it's a gift, especially in the way that I start to view other people differently and accept the fact that they also might be undiagnosed, like I
That's right.
was.
Yeah,
So my empathy has kind of increased massively. I've always been empathetic, but mainly to people that I couldn't see. Like I was
yeah,
always empathetic to people that I wrote songs about, or for causes, and people around the world that were going through suffering. I've never been very good with empathy with people in my own life. I think I'm getting better at that now, and that's come through being diagnosed as well.
yeah. Absolutely. And looking back, your life now makes sense. You know, you
Yes.
know
It does, and
when
that's a gift in
when
itself.
at the time you say, man, when I make the decision when I was 20, or broke up with a girl or with a friend, or this, the 30s, I make the same mistake. I didn't learn from the stuff. And now you're 40, whatever, and you were all those diagnosed, and you see the pros and cons, and you say, well, now my life makes sense. So, quote
Yeah.
unquote, makes sense, right? So it's,
Yeah.
but that's life, man. But we need to do the best we can, moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right,
And
let's talk. Yeah,
everyone,
go ahead.
yeah. No, it's just, and everybody, neurotypical people too,
Yeah.
what all people can only do their best. I think that's the main thing. And I think if you get to a point where you realize that you could have done better, then
Mm.
it's a good feeling to forgive yourself. I think I've done a lot of forgiving myself for my
Yeah,
past since getting diagnosed. Yeah.
absolutely. No, I'm with you, man. It resonates with me. Feel free to elaborate on the album, the Super Connected, that was released. We mentioned like 3 weeks ago, and I think you received some guidance from Kevin Godley as well, which I interviewed a couple of times. He's a very nice guy, man. Very, very good human being. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
very good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Super Connected has been the biggest project and most complex project I've ever developed. I love it. And it started in 2016, 2017, around that time.
Yeah.
And it was really to do with the trip I had in Italy. I met a neuropsychotherapist who told me about his work helping teenagers that had communication difficulties and wouldn't go to school or wouldn't talk to their parents, but they would spend all night, all day on social media. And so he used to do psychological assessments for these teenagers, and it created this picture in my head, which developed into a song. The title song, Super Connected, is I sing that song from the point of view of a 17-year-old girl who's in her bedroom and cannot leave because she's just safe and secure on whatever, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, all the places where she can have some power in who she is, and then that just developed out into writing about the journey that we've all been on in the last, I don't know, 10 years, where communicating with friends, family, loved ones, partners, colleagues has shifted so much from the phenomenological world to notification world. You know, we're doing a lot in the digital space, and I the album isn't saying whether that's good or bad. The album is saying that there are a lot of corporations that are benefiting from our digital communication in a way that they've made it hard for us to be able to communicate any other way. And so, and it's really important that with Super Connected, it's not a manifesto or anything. It's my real own experience of, I had many mental breakdowns and meltdowns as well, through so much connection, and realizing the real life connections in my life were not being nurtured. And so I began to write about the songs that are heartfelt, I think, on the album. Start a Conversation, Send More Light, The Touch of a Screen have really come from my own experience. And the other songs like Super Connected, The Complete Solution, Where Am I in All of This, and Start with the Sound are really all about those companies that just seem to be abusing power on a regular basis in a way that affects our day-to-day life. And I thought, why isn't Roger Waters writing about this? And so I thought, I'll write about it. He's writing about other important stuff, as always. But, you know, it was that kind of thing. And I just worked on the album for 2.5 years on the songs and recording. And then I decided, because I knew people are used to listening on streaming services now, that the album would be hard for people to listen to in one go. And so I thought, maybe if I made a film to go with the album, it would be easier, because you don't have to convince anyone to watch drama on Netflix anymore. You know, it's like people just watch it. That's the new album, you know. And so I made a film in 2019, still holding this collection of songs that I'm the most proud of, and I just love the music, and thought, I know, I'll make a film in 2019, I'll edit the whole film, and in 2020 I'll release the whole project, and it can be out in the world. And then, of course, we get the lockdown. And not only could I not release the project in 2020 because we had a lockdown, and, you know, all independent artists were struggling at that time. I know I was. But also, the story I was telling with the album was trying to make us aware of our screen time and how that might not be all healthy. You know, maybe there was an unhealthy part of screen time. And in the pandemic, we had to have a lot of screen time, because
that's right.
It was the wrong time to release that.
That's right.
I tried to release it in 2021, and it was so difficult. Then I think that was the last time I considered going the traditional route of talking to people in the music industry, and I know I find that's not the right place for this. And then last year I started again, but we couldn't get the attention that I really felt it deserved. And now I finally released it on May the 5th, 2023, and I've got to say, it's only been a month, but I'm astounded of the reviews by some really talented and intelligent writers. I don't like to call them music journalists. They're not they're writers, they're authors, and who really love the songs and love the music, but really understood why I spent 5 to 7 years on the album. You know, I'd never spend that long on a project on purpose. And the love for it is amazing. And in lots of different ways. I get people saying they love this one song or they love another, that they're all catchy, they're easy to sing along to, but they're also very, I don't know, they contain a lot of information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier. And I'm excited about where it's going. I don't know where it's going, but I'm really excited. Yeah.
It's a very good album. As I say, I listened to the album a couple of times and it resonates with me. And it's like 10 or 12 mini stories written from 12 different people, if you will, as if you have a book, a chapter, that's the story of my life. And each song may resonate, one, some with John, some with Mary, some with Peter, as if there is like a menu of 12 different stories, mini stories, if you will, written from 12 different points of view, if you will. That's the best way I can describe it. And it's a beautiful album. I'm glad you did it to begin with, and I'm glad that you talk about the subject, because we live in a crazy world. We are, me included, right? I'm a computer guy, so I have 3 computers at home, 3 in the office, iPad, tablets, and iPhone, and this and that. We don't need all this stuff, right? You know, I control myself. The screen time is only a couple hours a day, or I look social media an hour a day. I only do interviews. I don't post the stuff. I don't want the whole world to know about my life. And people are kind of fools in many ways. Let me give you an example, right? People have a sense of pride, empowerment, and for example, right? So if I were to post, right, the worst article in the history of the universe, right, or whatever, right, and I have 10 friends, people without even reading the first line of the stupid document, right, will say like, right, before, as if there is a need for folks to be part of something, be part of an article. The stupid article written can be the worst article in the history of the universe, and people need to be part of that, or checking the phone every 10 seconds. Somebody wrote and or respond to an email, or sleep with the phone right next to the bed instead of turning it off and watch a movie, spend time with your loved one, whatever. We live in a crazy society, so
Crazy society,
not
but
good.
I think it's a very crazy society in terms of the way we use technology and our devices, and that problems come with that. But I also really feel that it's important that we don't blame each other for what we do on social media or with our tech devices. We have to love each other and remember that if we were sitting in a restaurant or a pub or by a swimming pool and talking to each other, looking in each other's eyes, that we wouldn't have a lot of the problems. And I think it's not the people, I think it's the medium through which we're communicating that brings out the worst in a lot of people. To me, real technology is heart. That's the real technology. And there's many people that use technologies like social media and all of those kind of things, and can look after their heart, which is great, and it doesn't affect them. But there are many people who find it harder to keep their heart in the center of their life, and without going into internet bullying and all of this really horrific behaviors that we've seen on the internet over the years. The main culprit of this is the systems that have been created. And I don't even think the human beings who are in charge of the systems are really aware, and I only see one solution for being able to balance our digital life and our phenomenological life, and that is to spend more time with each other in the same room, which I hope I can do with you in America at some time.
That's absolutely. You know, two teenagers can be in the same room, right next to one another, and then they will text. No, but you want to say something to Johnny. Johnny's in front of you. Why don't you? Let's go get a beer. Let's get a cup of coffee. Why you need to text us that way? It's crazy.
And the thing with Johnny is that unfortunately he's grown up where this is normal in the world.
That's right.
I'm a kind of, I always had an analog childhood and early adulthood that then went into digital. I feel very lucky, and I'm 47. I feel very passionately about people of my generation speaking about these issues, because we really have a unique perspective, because we've seen as children the benefits of not having mobile devices, and we've seen the benefits of having them as adults. But I think we have to talk about it a lot for those younger generations, so that they can understand there are other choices.
Absolutely.
It's not about good or bad. I think it's more about choices and bringing in part of the real world as well. It's not what do they call it? Absolutist. It's not one thing or the other. You know?
Absolutely. No, I'm completely agree with you, man. It's
must embrace both.
Technology is great. The internet was great. Social media is great to a certain extent.
Yes.
What you do with it, how you spend an hour a day versus 5 hours a day, or and so on and so forth. And what do you mean by the first track of the album called? I think it's called "The Start with the Sun." What intrigued me? What does it mean to you? Start with the sun.
Start with the Sound is really my love song to sound itself.
Yeah.
It began. The idea for the song, the lyric, really began because I just noticed how much I and everyone else that I know we look at our phones, we look at things, and when we text when we're messaging somebody on any platform, we're messaging in silence, and silence is a powerful thing, and can be very useful in art. But with text messaging, my experience was that I was filling up the silence in my own head. So you could be sending me a message and saying, "Hey, Tim, I'm going to be, I'm not sure if I can do the interview today. Would it be okay to change the time to tomorrow?" So somebody like me just thinks, oh, maybe he doesn't like the album, or maybe, so I have assumptions. Now, if we're talking to each other like we are now, and this is the way I'm okay with Zoom, I hear your voice, and sometimes I can tell in your body language, and just realize that you just don't have time today, and that the issue is that it's no big deal. But so sound, I realize how important for communication sound is to me. I think to other people as well, but I don't know many people that use the telephone anymore. I use the phone a lot. I call people. Not everyone answers all the time. But, so I realized that sound really is such a crucial part of my life, in a way that I became quite angry about the technology companies. You can't mute a picture on Facebook or Instagram, but you can mute the sound.
That's right. I know what you mean.
There's no mute button. You can't turn off the pictures, but you can turn off the sound. And so start with the sound. The chorus says it, lost in an image. Start with the sound. And that's what I feel many of us are lost in images. Eye candy. Kevin Godley and I spoke about this nearly every night for a year. And he really was a great guide for a lot of this project and inspiration. He made me think differently, Kevin. He's brilliant. And this is what Start With The Sound is about. It's about realizing the value of sound, and that the mute button is a dangerous thing. I mean, I think when we're all, you can secretly scroll and read the subtitles, captions, like when someone says to me, what's the biggest hit at the moment? And I'm like, captions. Captions is the big hit. People love you to look and not necessarily listen. I know that many people that are friends of mine will hear this and think, well, they like listening. And there's a lot of people that do like listening. But it's the way it's created on the platforms is in favor of us looking, not listening. And I find that quite old-fashioned as well. Malcolm McLaren, the Sex Pistols manager, if we can call him that, who I love Malcolm McLaren, but he said people look before they listen. This was a big part of his philosophy and his approach with music, art, and punk and fashion. And I think he's a genius, and I think that idea was genius at the time. I think it's a new century now, and I think we need to explore listening more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a good example would have been, with fashion, Duran Duran, right? A bunch of, good-looking guys, and
I love them.
wear very fancy clothes. The videos were done in boats and expensive places in France and Italy and so on. Of course, they became very popular. Whether the music is great or not great, or the lyrics are great, it was an image in front of you, right? Like as if image and sound and everything instead of, the lyrics could have been terrible, but because
what we talked about before with Lindsay Kemp, his art was based on the imagery and vision. I like a lot of Bowie and Kate Bush's art, I should call it, and it's so important. But technology companies take the information that we know is true. People love looking at stuff, and have forgotten how amazing it feels to listen and close your eyes and just hear something. And that's what podcast, I think, are just such a godsend. Podcast, I think, has been a brilliant way to keep people using those muscles, the listening muscles, And so, Start With The Sound is that. And it's very tongue-in-cheek, I think. And I think it's written from the point of view of a kind of a part of myself that was rebelling. And then, of course, musically, it just I couldn't stop working on the song. It was such an obsessive musical exploration, which is why it has an kind of operatic almost middle to the song with the beautiful violin solo by Jonathan Hill. And I live in that song when I perform it, and when I was working on it.
Got it. For people that don't live in here in your case in UK, in London, why Soho is very important? It's part of your life. It is your life. It had been the name in different albums and programs, and Soho, the first part 1 in your life, and Soho part 2, and so why Soho? It's
well, it's accidental, but also not accidental. I didn't know very much about Soho when I was growing up as a child or a teenager. The first thing I heard about Soho was reading biographies by Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and Sex Pistols, people like that when I was in my teens. And I got into art school when I left school, and the art school that I got into was called St. Martin's, which is very famous. I think the Sex Pistols did their first gig there in '76, and so my mother said, well, go and move somewhere near there and we found a place, and that was in Soho. And I moved into Soho when I was 19, knowing about it a bit, but then I suddenly found out that my mother had been a dancer and a singer at a famous theatre in Soho when she was a teenager, and started in the pop business. And then I found out my grandfather was a comedian in Soho in the 1950s.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think because I was alone, I absolutely inside myself somewhere just reached in and thought, this is my roots. This
That's
is where
right. Yeah.
I'm 19. My mother was here when she was 19. My grandfather was here when he was in his early 20s. This is my roots. And my older brother, he's 10 years older than me, was in the film business, and he was in Soho all the time. So I just thought, this is where I should be. And so I began performing a lot in Soho, and the record industry in the 90s was, the Britpop scene was very much in Camden, but also in Soho. And when I began my solo career in 2004, I moved back into Soho and really became so close to the community. They supported me through difficult times. They embraced my music. They gave me spaces to perform, places like Ronnie Scott's. I was not, able to perform somewhere like that. It's an expensive hire.
I know you.
They opened the doors to me because I was writing songs about Soho, and they said, well, come and do something here. So my love affair with the place just blossomed throughout my 30s, and then I began a campaign to save the music venues in Soho, because they were not being protected by our government or our mayor at the time. And I did a lot of work and had some success. But it's a very difficult job to slow down development in central London. But we reminded people why it's important. It's where the birth of British rock and roll happened in 1957.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Yep. Yep.
And then you go back further, centuries, like people like Mozart lived there. And
That's right.
it's just, and the history of it. I mean, I could always get a job as a historian of Soho, probably.
Maybe you should write a book, man.
I love it. I love it so much. And it's going through a difficult transition at the moment, but I believe in the ghosts of Soho. I think they're there, and they'll guide it into the right place eventually.
Yeah, I mean, big businesses want to buy properties, whether historic or not, because they want to put a new building and new houses, and it's a lot of money, right? And the government will say, well, there used to be a historical place, many bands were playing there, and
yes,
the government need to step out,
well,
and some property need to be saved, right? Some,
Yeah, it's funny. Developers and landlords who, own property in Soho do a lot of advertising about the 60s. The Jimi Hendrix played here, or the Beatles played, or the Rolling Stones recorded in this building. And my point of view is, well, it makes the space available for the next Beatles, make the space available for the next Rolling Stones, or, it's not a piece of history that has to end. That creative community in the middle of our capital. I still think this is an amazing thing, that we have 50 years of all of the most incredible music in our country, not starting always in Soho, but always going from Soho to the rest of the world. Even the Animals, who came from the northeast of England, they started in Soho, and then the next thing they're playing in America. It's a platform, and for poetry, for writers, for artists, for comedians. It's just been an incredible idea, and more than anything else, it inspires you when you go there. If you're an artist, I did when I was 16. I walked down Denmark Street, and I saw Jimmy Page coming out of a guitar shop, and he walked past me and he smiled, And I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to get my first guitar in that shop.
That's right.
And I did.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that makes you feel the history that you love, that you want to kind of contribute something to. And that's what I always wanted to contribute to, the stories that have been told with music. I wanted to do my own little contribution to that tapestry. And I would not have felt like that without being in somewhere like Soho. And I think all over the world, there should be places like, there are places, but there should always be, should be protected, you know, so that other 15 and 16-year-old kids can just walk through and feel like they've walked into what might be the beginning of the rest of their life, you know.
So Denmark Street is so famous. I did a video. I don't know if you have the chance to look at it. I did it with a friend from Argentina in March. It's in
No, I'd
Spanish.
love to watch that. Is that a video you've done? An interview?
Oh yeah, it is posted in the YouTube channel. It's
watch it.
like,
I'd love to see that.
and that the guys from Argentina is been living in London for the last 20 years, and then he does tours in London. We covered he does a tour of Pink Floyd, another one of Genesis, another one of Queen, and we go to 20 different famous areas, and then one was Denmark Street, and we enter a couple of music shop where they sell guitar. We went to a place called the Regent Sound. Huh?
For you, coming from America,
I did it in March 15th.
Where did you grow up, Claudio?
Oh, sorry?
Where did you grow up? In Chile?
I grew up in Chile, right?
Yes, yeah. This must be a magical experience for you, seeing records for the first time by bands like Pink Floyd or the Beatles. These bands, and reading the records, and then going somewhere like Denmark.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that I would be able to do that kind of stuff. Like I told you before, right? I left Chile when I was 22 years old, and in 86, and a lot of bands were not going to Latin America. So I was buying record, buying, and I wanted to see all this band. And that was before the internet. YouTube didn't exist. Phones, and you couldn't access website where the concert was posted and so forth. So I was going crazy, and I'm very fortunate that I did okay in my life, and I've been able to travel 3 times a year to London, and I went to see the last 3 concerts of Genesis, before they split up.
You've done better than me, because even though I speak Spanish, I've never performed in Spain or South America.
So it's now everybody goes to Latin America,
Not me. You're going to have to tell me where to go. I don't know where to go. I have no idea about South America, but I'd love to go there. Yeah.
Chile and Argentina are great countries, man.
I've heard. I worked with a Chilean lyricist. Really? Many years ago. One of my albums is called Hijo de la Luna.
I got it.
I did. He helped me rewrite my songs in Spanish.
In Spanish, I got it. Yeah.
I have a whole Spanish album that I've never.
But when you have the chance, feel free to go to the YouTube, and Fairfax City Music is a videos about.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we visit different venues. We went to Ronnie Scott to see the place where Queen got together and decided to, continue as a band. We went to a building where the Beatles performed by the last time, Denmark Street, and the Beatles history, and so on and so forth. The first record store that was open at the time close to the Dominion Theaters, about 2 blocks. I forgot the street, right? So so it was a great experience. So there are so many great venues in London. I mean, in my opinion, the top 3 band, the history of music came from the UK. The Pink Floyd, the Led Zeppelin, and
part of the reason I did part of the reason I did the album launch for Super Connected at the
Yeah,
Roundhouse
yeah,
because of the history. I wanted to do something that in a space in it because it was in the theater, not the main venue, but they have a
yeah.
theater at the Roundhouse,
And the rock, yeah.
and I had to do it in a theater to be able to do the film as well. But the main reason was the history, and I knew Lindsay had worked there, and Bowie had worked there, and the Doors, Jim Morrison is like, that was my way into performance art on stage. And so the history of the buildings in London where magical things have happened is a very important part of my life.
Absolutely. And the Roundhouse is a very famous place as well. You mentioned a lot of, famous people who play there, So,
yeah, no, it's an honor playing there. And and the people that helped us put the show together. It's only 2 weeks ago. It feels like a long time ago now, but it was astonishing to have that kind of support from a venue like that. Yeah.
Looking back in your life when you decided you got your first record label deal, you were 17, 18 years old, and now you
19.
run, you run, the record label TA Music, and you have released over 25 albums. Not bad, man. Not bad for a kid like you, Not too bad.
It's still here. Yeah.
Good for you, man. Looking back at your life, think you would have done differently? I mean, from the business point of view, and
I don't think I could have done anything differently. I perhaps if I'd have known about my autism earlier, I would have been able to get some help earlier, because I have a lot of challenges with administration and money and mathematics, numbers. I've never been able to. My career has been creating constantly, not promoting. Promotion is like, people say, "Oh, your promotion's really good." It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's not good because it hasn't. I don't have any money, and I don't have a home of my own. If you're good at promotion, you're making money. I'm not. I'm happy. I'm really so happy with what I do, but yeah, the only thing I would have done differently would maybe have been found out earlier that I thought I was stupid. I thought I was
really,
knew I was clever with music and recording and writing. I knew I was good at that, but I thought I was really stupid at all the other things. And I'm not stupid. I've got challenges which are to do with the way my brain is, and luckily I found out now. So I now ask people for help, and when people tell me I'm doing something wrong, I tell them, yeah, I know I have challenges with that. Can you help me?
absolutely.
I would have asked for more help when I was younger if I'd have known. Yeah.
Which is anywhere you can would you like to tour with a new album? Is something that you would like to do? I know it's very expensive, but hire maybe
my dream is to perform.
a manager that can help you with that, or
I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love that. I mean, people say, "Oh, Tim does everything himself," and it's not that I don't do everything myself. I can do, and if no one else is doing it, then I do it. But I would love to have more than 1 or 2 shows a year. I only do 1 or 2 shows a year. Because the shows I do are complex, they're special, and they're really amazing. You can't do that a lot. It's taken 6 months to plan the show we did at the Roundhouse, and a lot of rehearsing, and it's theater as well as film, as well as music. And it went so well that it will happen again. But yeah, touring is the one bit of my career in music that I haven't been able to do, and I hope I get to do it before I get too old.
but perhaps an idea do like a maybe do like an acoustic version, you and the guitar playing, two, three
Oh
small
yeah.
venues, and take it from there. You want to get from point A to point B, but if you try to accomplish point B, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be thinking, hey, I cannot do it, I don't have the money, blah, blah. No, like, go baby step, man. Acoustic version of the album, right? Ping a couple music venues,
We've done
and
that.
then take it from there. And then you do the third, the fourth, and little by little you start.
Yeah, we've already done that.
Yeah.
We've already done the acoustic version last year. But the other thing is I've done acoustic gigs for 20 years and
Yeah.
I think it's fun doing acoustic gigs, but it's also, I think it's important to show what it is, what the intention of the writing is. Other albums I've done are meant to be acoustic, but this one's not. But the shows I do with Sarah Kershaw, who's my friend and genius pianist and singer, we do and are going to do some performances, which is just me and her with piano and acoustic guitar. Yeah.
I got it. I wanted to mention a little bit about the
I'm just going to put a light on. I can't see. Hang on.
Sure. Go ahead.
Meeting.
What time do you need to go? You need to leave now? It's 3. Well,
I should go. No, it's okay. I'm okay for 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I have only like two more questions. Feel free to elaborate on what love will want. I think I saw the video, the live in Manchester for 2018. Right? It's deeply. I was deeply moved by this. It's really beautiful, man, and it's very well put together. I would say that's the best way I can describe it. We live in a society with. I grew up in a Catholic family, right, where the Catholic Church told me, well, the role society are men and women, not to men, and this and that. Who am I to criticize? People about the sexual orientation and that kind of stuff. If people are happy and they have minimal life and they want to live life a certain way, that's the way it should be, right? As opposed to the government or the Catholic Church or any church telling, you committing sin or that or whatever. So I was deeply moved by the video, and it's very, very well done, put together, man. So
thank you. I mean, yeah, what love would want it's a long story. We don't have time to tell in all of it, but to summarize it for me is what love would want is about giving a voice to the voiceless. I'm lucky where I grew up. My mother was accepted that she was gay. I was accepted, even though my mother was gay. And when I got to a certain age, I really began to realize how lucky I was, and that doesn't happen in all countries. And so, in particular, this was to do with Russia and Chechnya, and the gay refugees that had escaped to save their own lives, from Chechnya.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's what the song is about, that love is a human right. It's not something that can be controlled. They can control the prices of oil and electricity and all kinds of things, but I think to control love and who you love is a very, very serious injustice. And where love is concerned, people should just be allowed to live their lives and
the way they want, right, and be happy about it.
Yeah, and the only thing I tried to do with the song was to sing it from the point of view of me as an 8-year-old child, with gay parents, because it makes me angry as an adult to think that there are countries that interfere with who loves who. And but anger, I sometimes feel it's not an effective way to convey a message. The energy is useful, but I kind of used the energy of anger that I had and then gave it to myself as a child. So it's a very childlike, innocent song, sung from the point of view of a child who doesn't know discrimination. And
that's right. Yeah.
a child looks at their parents, whether it's two women, two men, or a man and a woman, they don't care. They just want to be loved.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the spirit of what love would want.
The power of love. Quite sure you know that song, right? So it's,
yes.
That's right. It's what it's all about, man.
Yeah. So, the power of love and the right to love.
The right to, be accepted, the right to be accepted, the right to live in a society where you don't have to hide and be happy with your partner, whether it's a male or female, this or that, whatever, and being happy. And
I tend to believe that when humanity is healthy in their love, and I mean all kinds of love, family love, love with the partner, love with friends, love with your community, when love is free in that way and is healthy, amazing things start to happen. And you just have to look at the 1960s. I think that was a really incredible time for love, and there's been a lot of resistance for that in some countries since. And some organizations know that love is a power. There's a lot of talk about the power of countries and their nuclear power and their advertising power. There's a lot of, but actually love is the ultimate power. And you have to look at history and where people are loving well, I think humanity is doing well.
Love is the answer for sure, man.
Yeah, man. And you know that for sure.
Sure. I know, Tim, I've been talking to you an hour and a half, and quite sure we'll do a follow-up interview in the future. I know you're busy. It was very, very nice talking to you, Tim. You're a great human being. You're not only a great musician, and you have played with the best, and you have been trained with the best, but you're a very good human being as well. That's important. I have met a lot of musicians that are terrible human beings. No, it's not your case. You have done you were raised well. Let me put it to you by your mom. So
that's very sweet of you. It was my mother's 80th birthday yesterday, so
tell her that I say hello. Yeah,
I'll let her know what you said. She'll like that.
Right.
But also, thank you so much for the chat and for sharing about your background as well. And muchas gracias.
Same to you, man. Gracias, and thank you very much. And like I told you at the way, my interview is a little different because even if I was talking to, I don't know, Peter Gabriel, and everybody will know the hits and that album, the Genesis stuff, but for me, that's not important. For me, it's important to know the human being behind behind the piano, behind the instrument, behind the voice. I want to know the human on the other side. And if people, got to know you, got to know your life and your lifestyle and a little bit of yourself, in many ways, I feel like I've done my job. So it was very nice, Tim. Good luck to you, and I will.
Lovely hour and a half. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Stay in touch.
Okay, you bet. Thank you. Appreciate it. I will.
Yeah, man.